Yes, we're live. We're live. Tim, love to say hello to you as we get going here this morning and kick this off. Right behind you, I see our friend Sitting Bull with just eminent wisdom. As Zach is once again in first. Welcome to another episode of America Heals, everybody. This is episode number 10, and I got to tell you, it's so exciting to be able to do this. We have been sort of just coming at this with the perspective of trying to develop a conversation with real people who are caught in this world of forever news and Twitter and all the things that we've got to deal with. Whoop.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, no worries. What's up? Hey, Devin, what's going on, man? Make sure and invite and share all you guys that are in here first. So as we begin tonight, we're going to do something kind of special. And I see that Tim has his collar on. I'm sure. Did you preach a sermon this morning, Tim?
I did not. Today is actually the first day I've had off in like about 6 months.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. But
not at all. No, I just have a lot of extra energy, and the reason I wore the collar is because I am actually representing my professional theological point of view tonight. You know, it's hard earned and it comes from my experience and also my education. So I figured tonight was actually an appropriate night to be wearing the collar.
Yep, I like the collar, the baseball cap, and the headphones. It's a good look, dude.
It's me, man. This is me.
I get you. So one of the things we wanted to do tonight, and it's just going to be a beginning, and then we're going to have Jeff and Ace pop on here in a little bit, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But what we wanted to do tonight as we begin, and this is an America Heals, and number 10, this is a focus on the concept of sin in MAGA. And coming at this, I'm a Lutheran pastor. Tim is a Lutheran pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And what we are experiencing during these days is not only legal battles and political battles, but there's also belief and theology going on into every one of Trump's speeches, into every one of the developments of the rallies that are happening. And there's a lot of assumptions that are happening around the way MAGA exists. It's developed itself into a bubble. And as we now look at the complete rot at the core of this thing we now know as MAGA, it's an old story in many ways. Fascism has been around. Totalitarianism is a human reaction to things. And so we're just sort of, a lot of us are caught trying to figure out what this means. And so when we know about forgiveness, we hear about salvation and going to heaven and things like that. But a lot of times people don't think about the forgiveness element of Jesus's teachings and what that means for churches. And so, Tim, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is this concept of forgiveness and grace, which if you could give me, if I'm coming to your church and I'm like, Pastor Tim, what is grace? You use that word a lot. I don't know what it means. Let's start from there.
Thank you. So yeah, I am a pastor. I didn't get my full name out there, but I'm Pastor Tim Seitz, and I'm serving at Prince of Peace in Woodridge, Illinois. And it's a smaller church. And to even talk about grace for me, that's at the core of my theology and my understanding of the gospel of Jesus. It's at the core of my understanding of Christianity. And being a pastor is at the core of my identity. So really, if you ask me like about grace, then you're talking about something that's not only, you know, at the core of my understanding of Christianity, but really is at the core of my identity as a person. So to answer, you know, what is grace? That's like the most important question I can answer. So whatever I say, you know, it's like, this is the most important thing to me. And grace, when we hear grace, most people immediately think of a table prayer. And I don't want to go off on that and distract people, but the reason that they even called the table prayer grace is because they were so thankful for grace in all of its forms, that they would say thanks for the food as a simple expression of grace, and they called it grace, and then we forgot that it was actually connected to some much bigger concept. Grace is, in fact, the most powerful, most radical, most countercultural, world-changing, life-changing power in the universe.
What is it?
Grace is God's unconditional, unchecked, unchained love for humanity, for every single human being. And the reason that grace is so radical is because it goes against everything in the world that we know about the world. It goes against the idea of competition. It goes against the idea that some people are more loved than others. Grace is the result of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The real truth about the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and the real truth about what Jesus got in trouble with, in trouble for during his ministry, was that he was constantly loving and hanging out with people who were sinners and unashamed of themselves and their lifestyle. He hung out with prostitutes. He hung out with alcoholics. He hung out with people. He was most of the settings where he's with a group of people, you know, not most of them, but many of the settings where he's with a group of people in the Bible are actually at parties and wedding banquets. His first miracle was making wine. All of this is to say that grace is more radical than anything that we can understand, because we can't earn it. It's totally dependent on what happened to Jesus, and that Jesus came back for the forgiveness of sins. You can't deserve it. You can never be good enough to deserve God's unconditional love. The flip to grace is that, in fact, even if you understand it and you don't want it, or even if you know Jesus and you reject Jesus, even if you know God, which most people don't these days, but even if you do and you reject God, one question is, well, can you lose grace? No, you can't. In fact, Scripture tells us that the more you push away Jesus and the more you reject Jesus, the more Jesus loves you, like a parent loves a child that needs more attention. And grace is yours, whether you feel you deserve it or not. You can't get it by earning it. It's free. It's a gift. Wait, hold on though. It's one thing. It's a gift. It's a gift, but it's not free. That's the thing. It's a gift, but it's not free. It's a gift, but it came at the most expensive price in the universe, which was the death of God in human form. And then God had to come back in human form so that human sin died with Jesus and grace came back when Jesus came back to life.
Okay, Tim. And I'm just gonna do this, and then I'm gonna go off on my piece, okay? Because I've got something to say about this too, obviously. But what I want to get into is, well, I'm sorry, so forgive me. It's mine. I deserve grace. Didn't God promise it? What the fuck, man?
Totally.
I'm trying not to beat my wife. I'm trying to stop drinking, and I've tried to stop using whatever. This is what we hear. And so you want to hear that real, as you said, beautiful moment of acceptance and forgiveness and reconciliation, right? So it's just like, it's what's that worth,
Yeah. Well, we're stuck in an ultimate paradox because we believe in accountability. We believe in honesty. We believe in a relationship with God that holds us accountable, a relationship with our fellow human beings that holds us accountable. So for people to say, well, grace is mine, but I can do whatever I want, they aren't in a relationship of accountability. And that's the other thing about grace, is even though it's available to everybody, first of all, you have to have faith in Jesus, basically. You have to have faith in grace to even understand the most basic concept of grace. But check this out. To experience grace, to truly experience it, you not only need to believe in it and receive it, but you also have to help someone else experience it. And not only that, you have to recognize that grace is a gift from God, and it's not yours because you deserve it. And that's the key, because when you take not deserving it out of it,
this is great theology, but this question right below us hits a lot harder than this wonderful sort of pretty theology that we were taught in seminary, Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where we are as a church, and I'm talking to the mainline church right now, who has given me that same answer you've just been giving, which is theologically A+ correct. And it's how we do it. But to understand what you're talking about, we have to take a look at this question by Zach.
Yeah, man.
Do the terrorists who murdered the cop deserve grace? And so here's why I want to get into this,
right,
and an understanding of the difference of theology in American theology. If you're coming from a perspective that this option of grace is there, and you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, so we utilize the language of Jesus Christ's death and resurrection. But even if you're a post-Christian person, I want to speak to this, because I think this theology applies where you have to understand the concept of loss that leads to new life. If you want to apply the Christian symbols and stay within the church, that's a luxury and a gift, but not everybody are going to stay there. So I'm trying to give this to a theology for the masses to understand what grace is. And I'll do it this way. I get the phone call, and it's on a Tuesday morning, and I'm busy, and I'm cruising along doing stuff. And some woman calls and says, my dad is dying, and he's decided that he wants a pastor to come over. And it's like, he's not in my church. I don't know the guy. Sometimes if it works out, I can. Sometimes I have to say no because I've got a busy schedule and that's not within my congregation. So there's boundary issues there. But when I go, invariably there's a moment of some dude laying on a bed with COPD or something, who's in tears, feeling like shit for the life that he's lived. And he wants to know that Jesus loves him. And so the application of grace from the pastor to this man, for me, is on one level to say, yeah, dude, God loves you, and you should die and live without shame. And that's what happens at the deathbed, right? And there's a theological piece to that. But later on, if you pull back and you go to the funeral and you look at the family and you realize, well, he's been abusing his family for all of these years, and there's all of this stuff that never got addressed. This is why the concept of grace is so critical for me to bring this up on this show. Normally, I wouldn't do a lot of theology on this show, but I think that this is where we're getting into the MAGA question about the terrorist who murdered the cop and deserves grace. It's as if it's available to them to reform and to confess, which is repenting, is one of the things that it's a theological term to sort of unload the craziness that's going on so that it can be addressed and looked at. But pulling back even further into the history of how apartheid ended, in order for there to be true grace, as you're talking about, this lovely moment of reconciliation and freedom, there had to be a complete unletting of all of the fucking shit that those people were doing. The murders, the rapes, the thieves, the power trips. And I use that blunt language theologically because we have to get down to the fact that this is life and death stuff where people are harboring a sense of empowerment and privilege from a theological perspective that is allowing them to go happily into our capital and kill people, try to kill our government, and say it's somehow God's plan and that Trump is somehow God's person. So that's where I'm coming from. And I know that's where you'll go with it too, but
yeah. I mean, more than a handful of those people went from the churches to the Capitol. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not just that they stormed the Capitol. It's the same people. We have those same people in our pews, in our churches. I mean, that's a reality. And that's what I started to speak to earlier. We're stuck in a paradox. I mean, especially you and I, you know, grace is for everybody. God loves everybody. But I had a very strong reaction to seeing people who were so misled violate our sacred, hallowed ground as a country and as a government. And I wasn't thinking, oh, I have, God loves those people. I was thinking, I wish I could be standing with those police, and I wish I could have a chance to say a few words back to those. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the reality. Is I'm a pastor, but I'm also a strong man. And I'm not afraid to defend my family. I'm not afraid to defend my church. And I come from a long line of men in my family who aren't afraid to defend our country, and if I didn't follow the cloth, then I may have ended up in that same arena myself. Because even though grace is for everybody, listen, grace is for me too. And if I feel I have to stand up to somebody, then God forgives me if I cross a line and hurt somebody's feelings for the sake of the truth. Because the same gospel that calls to me to understand grace also calls me to speak truth to power, to stand up for justice, to defend the defenseless, to stand up whenever anybody's being exploited. And so to look at the way that the police were treated by our own citizens, look at the way Trump turned our own citizens against us because he didn't like the election results and he's afraid of going to jail when all of the court cases catch up with him. To see those things happen, it's true. Of course, that's a wonderful question. Do they deserve grace? No, they don't. Do I deserve grace? No, I don't deserve grace either.
Yep.
Does the fact that we both receive grace mean I'm not going to say something? Hell no. I am going to say something. I'll stand up in front of somebody. If you know me and you know my story, I have stood up in front of some people at the times when I felt called to do so, because that's also a part of the call.
Well, and I've had this experience in congregations where they have risen up and hated on my grace, hated on the preacher.
Totally.
And one of the things that's happening in a lot of our congregations is that the pastor is this nice, liberal, educated, way over-educated person standing in a room full of 75 people, and 85% of those people are, sort of, they kind of got sucked into a side MAGA thing. They're not full QAnon, but they're totally watching Fox News and they're listening to the pastor talk about forgiveness for immigrants. And they're sitting there under their breath going, bullshit. And they're calling their neighbor after church to say, that's bullshit. When do we get rid of when do we get a new pastor? And I've had that happen to me. And I think, a lot of pastors have had that happen to them. And so we can go down this road a long ways. I want to pull back because I want to stay focused on MAGA tonight.
Yep. I'm ready.
In the midst of this concept of grace, I wanted you to lay this out for a reference point, okay?
Right.
We're actually going to talk about sin.
Right.
And we're going to talk about brokenness. And I'll just give a quick example of what that means as a pastoral perspective. When someone comes to me and says, oh my God, Pastor Marty, we're getting a divorce and he's been cheating on me and his new girlfriend's pregnant and my kids are sad and I'm sad and what are we going to do? And so we sit with this person and I listen to this and I realize that this is just like a whole, bunch of china that's just been broken all over the place. And in order for there to ever be, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And then it's going to take a lot of work to put piece to piece to piece to piece to piece, if it will ever be that. And so you look at a situation and you're like, oh my God, sin is that. Some people worry about sin and worry about having a list of things that God thinks about as naughty. Oh, I remember that time I, jerked off in the, it's the concept of my lusts, my desires, my brokenness, my inclination to, when everything is right. In fact, sin is an archery term where when all the calculations are correct and all the wind is thought through and everything's ready and you let go and the arrow still misses. That's human fallibility at its finest.
Yeah. Sin is when it's the archer's fault. It's not the arrow's fault or the bow's fault. It's you didn't make the shot,
Yep. So in that, Tim, I want to talk about three particular sins that I think in the concept of elements of brokenness. The 10 Commandments is one way to get into it. The elements of
awesome.
brokenness that I want to get into tonight, I'm gonna tell you right now, 3 of them.
Yep.
They're going to be idolatry, and then we're going to talk about bearing false witness and lies, and then we're going to talk about covetousness and excessive covetousness and selfishness. So those are the 3, and then we're going to bring Jeff and Ace on, and they're going to come and kick our ass as we've laid this out tonight. Okay.
Awesome.
But MAGA, 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 make America great again, looking at the halcyon days of old, looking backwards as the greatness. And so we have Trump, and Trump has literally, for probably 2 years now, been considered a quasi god in MAGA. And so what happens with why is idolatry a bad thing? What gets broken? What kind of china gets broken when idolatry happens?
I'd hate to push back and say, dude, you got to take this one, but Marty,
I'll take this one.
You're the man when it comes to this one. You're always on point when it comes to
idolatry is the objectification of something in place of the questions of life. And I will get to this again in the bearing false witness. But if you listen to Joe Biden speak about an issue in politics, no matter what it is, you'll hear him talk about whatever issue is before him in the first person, as if it's a thing that he's engaging or a few people that he's engaging, and he talks about them that way. Donald Trump creates idol after idol after idol, which are quick touch points to grab onto, kind of like the monkey bars through a concept where he doesn't talk about anything in the first person at all. He doesn't even talk about himself in the first person. He always talks about it in the third person. The Democrats, Section 230, the Hillary, and he's created this little montage that's built into a little thing that everybody immediately clicks into. Now, when that happens, it makes it easy on human beings to get through the moment of question.
Totally.
It makes them happy. The media, exactly. The media is a objectified glob of people that are just them. He has hundreds of them. Sleepy Joe Biden, Lion Ted Cruz. He had to do that with every person he met because as a power motif, and this is what idolatry always does. It takes power from the people and takes power unto itself and controls the people with it. So that's the piece of idolatry I want to lift up and be like, oh my God, there's 1,000 broken pieces of china on the floor because of the habits and what led in many ways to the things we heard by the MAGA people running up the steps on their way to go kill our government was that it's my house. And that these Democrats need to go, and it was all about this self connection, as they've been empowered by their God, in other words, to not question anything anymore.
Right.
So ultimate legitimacy.
And a part that you lifted up is the objectification of these people, not to see them. Our part of idolatry is to objectify human beings and human situations to problems or obstacles, so that by the time the crowd was so fired up by Trump and they left the Save America March, is what it was called. We're on the mission to save America. By the time that crowd got to the Capitol, they weren't thinking about the human lives inside of the Capitol, the senators that we duly elected with families.
They were the enemy.
Exactly. They had become objectified. That is part of the damage. That's part of the real danger of idolatry, is the objectification of your enemies or obstacles that you identify that are in your way and what you're trying to accomplish.
So to as a pastor whose job it is to not only preach the forgiveness, but also lay down the law, what do we have to say to the MAGA folk who have been thinking that they're right and might stumble upon this scope? What do you need to ask yourself, MAGA person, about your idolatry and your love towards Donald Trump? Do you have any suggestions? I got a couple.
Well, the first thing that Jesus uses to counter idolatry, other than say, beware of it, is to focus on the human connection, one human to another. Love your neighbor as yourself. to any person in MAGA, I mean, I have a ton of questions, but if I want to bust out a theological one, how could you ever separate yourself so far from your neighbor who's inside of that building, protecting that building, all the way down the line? How do you get so far removed from your neighbor that you can no longer not only love them, but you see them as an enemy that you're willing to inflict harm upon? How? What happened? I mean, that's, I can't help but ask the question that's tearing at the back of my mind. What the hell happened to convince people that there was something so egregious that it hasn't happened in 200 years, and now is the time to storm the Capitol and take on American citizens defending American sovereign soil for our Constitution and our Constitution's purposes for the sake of our democracy? What was it that so convinced people that there's something new and egregious that has happened that has never happened in 200 years, and we are going to inflict violence upon our own fellow citizens to respond to it?
With no platform, by the way.
Exactly.
Let's remember that the Republicans still don't have a platform, and so
that's the other question I would ask. Maybe that's not the pastoral question. Like, that's like, what the fuck is your problem?
Because Daddy Trump said so. Yeah, and that's the piece. It's because Daddy Trump said so, Zach. It gets into, and that's where the idolatry stuff needs to be looked at psychologically as well. How many of these MAGA folks see Donald Trump as a substitute father figure for something that happened in their family life? How many of these folks are pledging allegiance to grandpa's hegemony from the 1930s or 50s that were the good old days, and that's in their family system has been deemed as the perfect life of perfect America, or 80s or whenever it was, right? So there's all sorts of motifs of ideals that come when "Make America Great Again" literally is a phrase that does not exist in the present. It's engaging in a past life that we want to re-inhabit. And so MAGA by itself is a cultic idol. There's another piece that I want to get into, and this is the bearing false witness. What has happened in your experience as a pastor when you have a lying, gossiping, overwhelming bubble? What does it do to people?
It is amazingly organic, and it doesn't necessarily pull everybody into the lies that are feeding the bubble, but it pulls everybody around the bubble into the influence of the bubble, especially in a vulnerable community like a church, where people are more afraid to make waves, they're more afraid to make trouble, they're more afraid of the discomfort of conflict than they are of changing a situation that is toxic and everybody knows it. I mean, they would rather walk around a white elephant in church every Sunday for as long as they need to than just say, listen, lady, you're bitching about stuff every single Sunday. It seems like all you do is, the only reason you come here is to complain. Maybe you should either not come or find someplace else to worship. That is the kind of truth, that we need, I think, right now in response to MAGA. But in the church and in society, you're not going to find a lot of that. It takes courage to be willing to face that discomfort.
So move it out of the church and move it into the home. We're not even talking about MAGA. We're talking about alcoholic grandma who's upstairs drinking when nobody wants to talk about it at the holidays, or, the secrets that we have in our families where we harbor our secrets, and it makes people move around in different ways where they cannot engage each other in a truthful way. They all have to be part of enabling this larger lie that the more you engage it, the scarier it becomes, and the more allegiant, therefore, the scarier, because you don't want it to blow up on you, man. And
yeah.
So,
well, a lie is the only sin that, as soon as you commit it, the sin itself starts expanding. Because as soon as you tell a lie, you have to chase it down with more lies, to cover up that lie. And that's exactly part of the influence of that original bubble, is that group starts to be so committed to defending lies and people are still committed to not confronting that person. Pretty soon lies start to drive the dialogue, even though they're lies. And even though at one point people knew they were lies. And I think that you can look at Trump and see that is exactly part of what's happened with him. I mean, as soon as he started, one of the first things we heard about was alternative facts. Mm-hmm. Listen to me. If you're out there and you think you believe in alternative facts, I have information for you. That's bullshit. There are no alternative facts. The reason we call them facts is because they can be tested and proven and tried, and we can say, this is a fact. And if it's a fact, there's not an alternative fact. There's a fact, and then there's a not fact.
Yep.
That was the beginning of it. It's
so there's another...
Let's start to loosen our understanding, our relationship with the fact. Let's start loosening our relationship with news and reporting on factual things and start turning it all into fake news and accusations, like you said. I mean, he was quick to turn on the news.
And not only with the false facts of giving, so maybe it was maybe if we go back and look at how it was done, a rhetorical history lesson to see when he did different moves, but there was definitely the installment of the language of fake news and, alternative facts. That was an advent that came with Trump. It was a thing that we all processed through. I think it was some of the most powerful language of his whole presidency, to be honest with you. I think it will be the lasting piece of Trumpism. But then there's the other part of it, which is a secondary thing rose in, and it's now we can call it Q. It was different sources at the time, but what it was while there was a degrading of the belief in regular facts, there was an implementation of a new set of facts that never gave you a full sermon's worth so that you could go home and go, oh, yeah, or, oh, I don't know, I think that guy's full of shit, which is what a sermon does. When you drop an idea, you give the whole idea and you go home and it is what it is. Yeah. You don't say at the end of a sermon, and next week I'll give you the answer. It's because that's controlling and that's bullshit. And people wouldn't put up with it for more than 2 Sundays unless you had this incredible media machine that was implementing this concept that, oh, the next thing's coming. Ooh, if you just hang along, you're going to see it.
I have 2 perfect examples for you: tax returns and the health plan. I mean, they're coming in 2 weeks, 2 more weeks. That's all you got. Wait, for 4 years, we waited for 2 more weeks. I mean,
well, I think he honed his skills on those larger motifs. But now what we've got on this web with capillaries of ways where people are getting their private information, their private stuff, that's coordinating with them on 8chan or Parler or whatever secret little place you have to go to get the intel, man. That's this. What it is. Pull back. It's a dopamine drip, dude. It's a brain fuck. It changes your chemistry of your brain, and that's why people stay in cults. And so it's important as a religion versus a cult. And we're in a religion. Take it or leave it. All the good with all the bad. We have scrutiny. We have people who walk up to us every Sunday and go, Pastor, thanks for your sermon, but I think you're full of shit. Right. And that is part of a healthy conversation. Whereas in Trump land, you question it, you're out.
Right.
Or you're wrong, or you're flipped.
Right. Well, and in the church, if someone says something egregious, we are typically not supposed to say, anything too egregious in response, right? I mean, again, that goes back to the paradox. But what you're talking about, I think, is leading us into false witness. How you create a false witness by making it a exciting dopamine drip narrative, where you're more interested in finding out what's going to happen next than you are in whether it's accurate or not. I mean, if you listen, that's exactly what everybody's been talking about, thousands of lies. They've fact-checked Trump, and he just has told thousands and thousands of documentable lies where they can say, well, this is what he said. And they can even go and say, and here's where he clearly knew the truth. And here, is how it's a lie. I mean, thousands. It just became part of the norm, part of the norm, part of the expectation, part of the thrill even, it's like, how egregious is it going to get? Yep. I know that's a lie. I'm always wondering how many other people know it's a lie. I mean,
if every lie is a bomb into creation, that is going to be a problem. Carpet bombing billions of lives over the course of 4 years, or thousands and millions of lives, is going to take its toll. I'm going to pause because we got 4 minutes before those two guys come on.
Sweet.
Because we're going to stay in this while they're on until
I feel good about it, though. I feel good about.
I do too, man. This is awesome. Okay,
so
last piece I want to add to the MAGA core sin craziness that we heard climbing the stairs was back to the words, "This is mine. This is my house. You can't take something from me that's mine." And covetousness has usually two commandments in the 10 Commandments. Don't covet this and don't covet that, but covetousness. What is covetousness?
Covetousness is where, well, there's degrees of covetousness, but it's basically where you desire what someone else has.
Yep. It's a living with a constant wanting, desiring, thinking about, fixating upon.
Exactly.
Again, it's the backside, if you think about it, of objectification.
Right.
And so that selfishness, I'm going to call it an uber fanatic. It's part of my fanatic word of uber fanatic Christian fascist selfish, ultimate selfish people are MAGA. You can't do it without that.
True. Like, what's the goal? What are you trying to get to? What are you coveting? Yep. What is MAGA's golden calf? What are is it, because it just seems like it's a bunch of racist people who love having their investments grow, and they have a champion in the White House, and that's it. It's not. He does a great job with policy, with foreign policy, with working with people, with representing the common man, with, bridging a gap between both sides. None of that. He does none of that. None of that. You know what I mean? What is the covet? What is the goal? Why did you storm the Capitol? It was so you could keep your racist, corrupt president who gives you permission to be as asshole as you want to be in the White House for 4 more years, so that we could have 4 more years of chaos and people being entitled to be complete assholes to one another.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Pastor Tim.
Yeah.
And then I will say this as we bring Ace and Jeff in about a minute and a half. I want to lay this out because this is something many of you know, but it's important to understand. The Protestant Christian work ethic in America is different than when theologians talk about the gospel. The gospel is the idea of reconciliation, forgiveness, new life that comes through sometimes sacrifice, sometimes confession of the bullshit that you've been participating in and changing your ways. It's hard, but it's real, and people's lives change because of that. It's called law and gospel. It's the dynamic of confession and forgiveness. But the idea of the American work ethic is very different. It says that God blesses the winners, those who score the most touchdowns, and God scorns those who are poor, outcast, immigrant, and on the margins. And so as we lift this up, I think it's important to recognize where this, just similarly into the split of the Republican Party, there is a split in Christian theology around MAGA and people who believe that God blesses the winners and that the greatest inkling of what God's life would look like is Donald Trump, therefore. And then there's the rest of the impotent church in America that's going, no, it's about loving your neighbor as yourself. And to be quite honest, our churches are paralyzed for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with what they're supposed to be doing. It's all internal bullshit, most of it. But at the core, this isn't even a Christian problem, Tim. This is a human problem. Are we going to be real people, or are we going to live in a fake bubble forever and become fascists? And so I'm going to bring those guys on, your response, but I'll be bringing them on while we're doing it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's an honor. I can't wait to hear what these guys have to say. It's good to see you guys.
Ace and Jeff, welcome. I hope we haven't overstepped our bounds theologically. We've tried to give a theological perspective of something that's happening that needs to be identified so that people who may not understand a lot of theology can have some handles to look at this thing with, because it's much more than just MAGA. I'll let you guys say hello and go for it.
Go ahead.
I was listening to it. It's really interesting.
Me too.
How do I put it? I am not religious, but I am very for religion as long as it's not pushed upon me.
Yep.
I like the idea of religion because I feel like there are people that need religion because without it, they get lost. It's not for me because I grew up in a country that was frowned upon it, and my parents didn't like it because it could potentially get them into trouble. One day I can go into a story about that, but I appreciate religion. I just I kind of push back when it gets pushed on me and say, when people say something like, oh, you're not religious, and they automatically judge me as I'm not a good person. I'm going to hell.
And
all that does is basically tells me I don't want to be part of it.
And in Georgian culture, is that still like that happens sometimes?
It does. You don't generally tell people in Georgia that you're not religious. It's just not a good idea. But I'll go to. I've been to church. I've been to synagogues.
Yep.
I enjoy it. It's just not something that's for me.
Yep.
So I did learn a lot.
Did we? Well, and do you see how this is helpful to discern some of the MAGA craziness that has to be unpacked at some point? We have to. I mean, I think we need to do. I think we're going to have to get to the point of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission when this is all said and done, where we go back as they did with apartheid, and you go back and say, you're facing 1,000 years in jail, or you can be free, but you have to tell us every single thing that you did and that you knew about, so that we can then begin to move on. And if you hold anything back and we find it out later, you're going back to the 1,000 years. Like, to me, that's where we're not there yet. We're still in the first rounds of the battles, but to look at these battles and recognizing the weaknesses of MAGA's theology, and it is a theological movement. Don't kid yourself. It's about theology. This is why I wanted to bring this up tonight. I won't do this in very many scopes, but I think it's got to be there for people to look at.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that was so far it's been very interesting. I think since Ace described his situations with religion, I was raised Methodist. I was confirmed Methodist, which for those that aren't involved with the church, that's when you're a teenager and you study more about the church, learn the Apostles' Creed, at least in the Methodist Church, and you stand before the church and say that you want to be baptized as a Methodist and as a Christian. So it's confirmation that you've chosen to be a Christian, not just baptism when you were a baby, when it wasn't elective. So I mean, I was very involved as a young person. Since then, I probably haven't set foot as a member of the congregation in church since I was probably 18 to just go to a church service. I have participated in a few church services as a musician and as a guest. Actually, a friend was trying to build a Nazarene church here in town. So I have actually gone to a couple, and those are really amazing church services when it's, 20 people, in a 4-piece band, and there's no dogma, there's no heavy topics. It's all just like, let's talk about, Christ visiting a town, and these people lowered their crippled friend down through the ceiling so they could see Jesus, even though the crippled friend actually wasn't religious. So that might be an interesting story for Ace. Long story short, I'm sort of religion adjacent, but my mom's a Methodist deaconess and my stepdad's same Lutheran sect you guys are in. So I have strong theologians on one side. My dad and his wife now are not religious at all, purely sort of analytical types. So they don't really have. He believes in spirituality, but not religion. So anyway, that was a really long explanation.
Well, okay, fair enough. And so let's move away from that. That was the kickoff. But let's talk about. I'll bet, no matter who's religious or not, that they've experienced lies or gossip. And I'd like to talk a little bit about where we are and how this dopamine drip, as I described it, how this cult is behaving, because that's why I brought this part of it up, to recognize sort of a broader theological approach. But now let's look at MAGA and get into what is motivating them. What is happening in their brains when they're, and maybe there's different things happening, different places on that Capitol with different people's motives too. So I'll drop it on the floor and see where we go.
I've said for over a year, I definitely feel like for the last 5 or 6 months, I think we've entered a world now. I think historically, people said things like don't discuss politics in public or at work or whatever, because the idea was it's just a divisive issue and you should be friends with people regardless of their views on these divisive issues. It seems to me that's completely gone, and people have embraced their bigotry. They've realized it's just a lot easier to have a view, get a stance. They're huge fans of the falsehood of consumption. For example, Democrats are less religious than Republicans, so of course they turn around, they say Democrats are godless and they hate our religious views, and they just take all these things and they make all these little buzz phrases and they build this big old stack, of just all these bigoted fallacy of consumption lies, until they're just convinced that they're right, we're wrong, they're good, we're bad. It's just extremely, sixth grader childlike mentality that like you were saying, someone was saying earlier, that not only have they lost their love for their neighbor, but they can actually hate their neighbor. And it's just really surprising to me. I mean, to the point that you'll run into literally your neighbor and they'll start cracking jokes about you being a godless heathen, and you're just sitting there going, what just happened? Like, what makes you think I'm a godless heathen? We've never talked about religion in our lives,
Right.
So that's a really,
because you've been objectified as a Democrat.
Right.
You can jump that far just on one piece of knowledge.
And that's when they'll tell you hate guns and all these other things that aren't true about me,
Right.
that you're godless. That's not true about me. They just want to tell you all about you because they've just completely succumbed to their bigotry. And again, they're good, we're evil. And I know why, because it feels good to think I'm good and you're bad. It's the classic, Aryan mentalities. All kinds of mentalities have been about.
Sorry, Jeff.
I'm good, you're bad. All kinds of mentalities have been about, I'm good, you're bad. I'm special because I'm me. I'm special because I'm a MAGA. Those messages are very powerful. And so I think that's what we see. And then when you start to challenge, when they've built their whole mentality on that, I'm special because I'm MAGA, because I'm a white Republican or whatever. When something comes out, they don't have the ears to hear it. When you say, Donald Trump's cheated on every wife he's had, they tell you, no, he hasn't. And you're like, yeah, he has. I mean, he got Marla Maples pregnant while he's married to Ivanka. No, they were separated, they'll tell you. It's like, well, what are you talking about? Yep. And it just, and when it comes back to it, something I saw on a Flat Earth documentary I recommended to all you guys was, if their beliefs are so strong that they have to bend reality to get it to fit into their model. They literally can't objectively look at Donald Trump because their entire model is Donald Trump is perfect. And so when you say, like I say, Donald Trump cheated on all 3 of his wives, or it looks like he's got negative wealth. Now, he may own some assets, but his cash flows are very negative. No, he's got billions in debt, but he's got trillions, over here. It's just like, you just can't. When they invade the Capitol, they say, no, they were infiltrated by Antifa. I mean, it's nonsensical. It's just nonsensical. But they have to bend reality to match their beliefs. And that's why people talk about it as a cult, similar to a religion, obviously. They've literally created a belief system based upon a person, which is a very bad idea, because pretty much any person's going to let you down if you deify them. But they're not ready for that. They're not ready for that. Mark my words. If Trump leaves office, they will immediately say he has been assassinated and there's a body double to destroy his image and their whole movement. I mean, they will just, anything that happens to this guy, they're going to already be ready. You're going to be like, well, he's been boxed in, and they're going to go, no, he drilled a hole and then he went to Saturn and then he parachuted. Like, you can't, they won't be confined by reality.
There were 2 women at the, assault on the Capitol that were still outside after the windows had been smashed and the ambulances, the reinforcements that started showing up. And the guy who, for the news, was interviewing these 2 women, and he's like, I just am curious if you guys condone the violence that's going on at this, demonstration. And they looked at him and they said, there hasn't been any violence. And the guy with the microphone, he's like, well, they're right behind me. There's violence. They smashed in the windows, and when there's ambulances, and these women are standing there. There's literally people running by them, and they're looking at the guy and they're like, no, that's misinformation. This is a peaceful demonstration. Wow, the violence is going on around them. That is no joke.
You can hear the glass breaking, yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. That literally happened.
Blow us up, Ace.
Well, just to kind of go on a couple of points. Unfortunately, and the Republicans have been doing this quite a while, which is why I'm really always surprised. I've said this many times. I'm really new to politics. I used to not care. In fact, I really need to thank Donald Trump for me liking politics, because I used to not care. It wasn't anything important to me. I didn't read it. I didn't know anything about it. And within a year and a half, I know a lot more, and I'm learning all the time, and I enjoy it sometimes. A lot of times I don't. But what I've learned is the Democratic Party, which is center, left, center, right, there's this Democratic Party. They are for the working person, for your middle class person. But surprisingly, your middle class and working person have stopped voting for the Democrats. So what I've also found, and it's so weird, is a lot of the MAGA people, they vote and against their own interest, and they follow MAGA against their own interest, which is very weird, because when you tell them, hey, when you're talking to them and you're talking, I do this on Periscope all the time, like, what policies do you want to put in place? A lot of their policies are Democratic policies. But what they get hung up on is the Republicans and MAGA people. They found certain things that once they're like trigger words. Oh, I hate that word, but they're trigger words. And once they get into them with those trigger words, it's a hook. Abortion, guns, child molestation, which that's a QAnon thing, which is super weird. And by the way, that one is very weird, because that one's designed to get your average person. So like that woman that got killed, she doesn't look like a normal MAGA person, but she got onto this whole child molestation thing. And I have a lot of people that are on my social media. They're normal, especially women. They're normal women, younger. And the Q thing with the child molestation goes crazy. And once they jump on that, it's over, because to them, if you're a Democrat, you support child molestation. And like, how do I get out of that? Or if you're not into that, then if you're a Democrat, you support abortions and killing babies. Or if you're a Democrat, you want to take away everybody's guns, and you want to take First Amendment rights. It's always to extremes. And it's very hard to get out of a box, because I always talk about an argument. They come with an argument of, you want to kill babies, and I come with, no, we don't. And now we're so far apart that it's very hard to go, hey, can we get some of these weird thing? Let's talk about reality and policies that change your personal life. The Democratic Party, you're either poor, middle class, unless you are super rich. There's no need for you to vote Republican. That's voting against your own interests. But
and Ace, if you would have, as a person who hadn't been into politics at all, and you somehow stumbled into that, and something in that realm caught your attention, you would only know those issues. And it's not as if those folks are like going, well, I also know that we should probably have a pretty strong NATO because it would help us on the international stage against Russia. Yeah. No, they're not thinking that. They're like, oh no, NATO, or whatever Trump said about NATO. And the other thing I want to say about Democrats, this is anti-Semitism. This has been going on for well over 400 years in terms of anti-Semite rhetoric around baby killing They'll sneak in and eat your baby. That's one of the oldest ones in the book. And it was one of the easiest ways to get low information and even lower information people to have a direct emotional connection to a stand. And so when they come in and they go, well, you're a Democrat, so you drink baby blood. What the fuck am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah. If you basically start off with nothing. You can't even, because once you start with that type of rhetoric, then what am I going to argue with you? You're so ridiculous. You think so low of me based on that. Also, Jeff is absolutely right. We really do need to go back to not talking politics and not talking religion with people that we don't know that have commonality, because it's actually not a good idea. Because when you do that, then you start with, oh, you're a Democrat. Oh, now you're a libtard. And then it gets moved. I saw this happening for the first time this year. I went to a Christmas celebration and I got called out for being a libtard. And I was like, this is ridiculous. What are you talking about? Like, I'm a conservative middle center person. I have conservative views. I have liberal views. I'm like right in the middle of everything. I don't really think that I even have a party at sometimes because I'm not represented as well, but I do now. I am much more comfortable with the party now because it's center, and that's where I want to be.
I have two major. Someone said how to flip the script on MAGAs, and we don't want to go too far into anything. But when they start saying you want to kill babies, I have two very quick responses. Number one is you just stop short and say it's illegal to kill babies, and just let the silence crush them. Second thing you can do is say, look, study Ireland where they made it illegal. And then almost immediately they made it illegal with, I think, like an 80% vote. And then they turned around within a couple of years and made it legal. So, that's a modern country, a Christian country. They banned it and almost immediately reversed it because they figured out banning it is way worse than having it legal. So those are two quick responses to that stuff. The easiest way to flip the script right now on MAGAs is you just say MAGA is a terrorist organization that tried to it was insurrectionist against our federal government. That's who you guys are now. So
I think that's where we are from Wednesday. That's why I wanted to get into this because we kind of had it planned. And then the second half of the show, we've got a name that we've moved. The ball has moved now.
Yeah. And just one quick thing, what Jeff said, an argument that I always tell Republicans is, listen, Republicans don't even care about this agenda that they're selling you because they've been in power. They did nothing on guns, right? They didn't protect them anymore. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything about abortion, and they already had the courts. Mm-hmm. They could have put up an abortion. They didn't do any of it. They're not interested in doing it because once they do it, then they don't have anything else to sell you. Imagine if they opened up guns more, got rid of abortions. What else would they be selling you? A healthcare plan?
No. Yeah, that's what I said.
What do they have left to come to the thing? Well, they have nothing, which is the agenda that they threw up this time around because they don't have a plan for you, and they can't start talking about guns and abortions because even Republicans and MAGA people go, wait a minute, you've been in power 4 years. You had the Senate, you had the House, you had the courts, you had everything, and you did nothing. Why? And then the guns, Obama was in power for 8 years. Nothing on guns. He didn't take away your guns. So what do you have to say about that? It's all political play with them. It's just another way to hook you back in and go, if you don't elect us, this will be taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And they know banning abortion would end up the same way it did in Ireland. They know that there's more suffering on the other side. They know the lines where it is, even if they're individually pro-life, which of course is the beauty of being pro-choice. You can choose what you want to do. That's the beauty. That's American liberty, right? I mean, we're supposed to believe in liberty, right? But anyway, they know very well that that's a dead-end road. They'd get to the end of that road, and they'd have to apologize and come back, and they'd lose the Capitol and the hot-button issue, to your point. I do have a really good joke to finish out Trumpers and God before our break. Are you getting ready to go to break here, Marty?
I am.
You've probably all heard this joke, but I think it's worth airing one more time. A Trump supporter dies and goes to heaven. God says, you lived a good life, so I will grant you a completely honest answer to any question you have. The Trumper, who really won the 2020 election? God. Biden in a fair election, the Trumper. This goes even higher than I thought.
Exactly. That's perfect. That's exactly how it works.
That's the move.
And that's it right there, right?
It's simply a tactical move, right? It's it's got to be deeper than you.
You just got to move the goalpost.
All right. So what we're going to set up for a halftime, and we're going to just take a break, is a very important video that Arnold Schwarzenegger put out today. And I want everybody to watch it and deal with it because we're going to take a little halftime break here and get back to a whole different set. But this is going to set it up. He's going to cover some of the stuff that Tim and I spoke about earlier in some different ways. But I just think this is crucial. I'm going to put it on the full screen. Guys, if you need to refill your bevy or whatever, we'll rock it out.
1 second. Let me share it.
Cool. It was up there for a second.
Yeah, I shared the wrong. Let me share this.
Please, everybody, invite folks as we're watching this or towards
Definitely
the end of it.
share us and invite us. All
yes,
right,
please.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans and to our friends around the world about the events of recent days. Now, I grew up in Austria. I'm very aware of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1940, the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys. Wednesday was the day of broken glass right here in the United States. The broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. But the mob did not just shatter the windows of the Capitol. They shattered the ideals we took for granted. They did not just break down the doors of the building that housed American democracy. They trampled the very principles on which our country was founded. Now, I grew up in the ruins of a country that suffered the loss of its democracy. I was born in 1947, 2 years after the Second World War. Growing up, I was surrounded by broken men drinking away their guilt over their participation in the most evil regime in history. Not all of them were rabid anti-Semites or Nazis. Many just went along, step by step, down the road. They were the people next door. Now, I've never shared this so publicly because it is a painful memory. But my father would come home drunk once or twice a week, and he would scream and hit us and scare my mother. I did not hold him totally responsible because our neighbor was doing the same thing to his family, and so was the next neighbor over. I heard it with my own ears and saw it with my own eyes. They were in physical pain from the shrapnel in their bodies and in emotional pain from what they saw or did. It all started with lies and lies and lies and intolerance. So being from Europe, I have seen firsthand how things can spin out of control. I know there is a fear in this country and all over the world that something like this could happen right here. Now, I do not believe it is, but I do believe that we must be aware of the dire consequences of selfishness and cynicism. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. He sought a coup by misleading people with lies. My father and our neighbors were misled also with lies, and I know where such lies lead. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet. But what are we to make of those elected officials who have enabled his lies and his treachery? I will remind them of what Teddy Roosevelt said. Patriotism means to stand by the country. It does not mean to stand by the president. John F. Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage. A number of members of my own party, because of their own spinelessness, will never see their names in such a book, I guarantee you. They're complicit with those who carried the flag of self-righteous insurrection into the Capitol. But it did not work. Our democracy held firm. Within hours, the Senate and the House of Representatives were doing the people's business and certifying the election of President-elect Biden. What a great display of democracy. Now, I grew up Catholic. I went to church, to Catholic school. I learned the Bible and my catechism and all this. And from those days, I remember a phrase that is relevant today: a servant's heart. It means serving something larger than yourself. See, what we need right now from our elected representatives is a public servant's heart. We need public servants that serve something larger than their own power or their own party. We need public servants who will serve higher ideals, the ideals in which this country was founded, the ideals that other countries look up to. Now, over the past few days, friends from all over the world have been calling me distraught and worried about us as a nation. One woman was in tears about America, wonderful tears of idealism about what America should be. Those tears should remind us of what America means to the world. Now, I've told everyone who has called that as heartbreaking as all of this is, America will come back from these dark days and shine our lights once again. Now, you see this sword? This is the Conan sword. Now, here's the thing about swords. The more you temper a sword, the stronger it becomes. The more you pound it with a hammer and then heat it in the fire and then thrust it into the cold water and then pound it again and plunge it into the fire and into the water, the more often you do that, the stronger it becomes. I'm not telling you all this because I want you to become an expert sword maker, but our democracy is like the steel of this sword. The more it is tempered, the stronger it becomes. Our democracy has been tempered by wars, injustices, and insurrections. I believe, as shaken as we are by the events of recent days, we will come out stronger because we now understand what can be lost. We need reforms, of course, so that this never ever happens again. We need to hold accountable the people that brought us to this unforgivable point. And we need to look past ourselves, our parties, and disagreements, and put our democracy first. And we need to heal together from the drama of what has just happened. We need to heal not as Republicans or as Democrats, but as Americans. Now, to begin this process, no matter what your political affiliation is, I ask you to join me in saying to President-elect Biden, President-elect Biden, we wish you great success as our president. If you succeed, our nation succeeds. We support you with all our hearts as you seek to bring us together. And to those who think they can overturn the United States Constitution, know this: you will never win. President-elect Biden, we stand with you today, tomorrow, and forever in defense of our democracy from those who would threaten it. May God bless all of you, and may God bless America.
Gorgeous. That was a great. That was, and he's a Republican.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
That was great. I hope we could do that. It is very hard to. I don't know how many more weeks, months, years we can get to the point to where we can just say we're all in one nation, and we have got to stop looking at each other as left and right. It's really just we're all citizens. Let's talk about policies, and let's find a good middle and keep on moving forward. Pass bills, pass reforms, and just keep on getting it moving. One thing, the reason that people, I've talked to some MAGA people or some people that are super Republican. They don't like government. They're not into government. They don't even like this government. And it's run, they don't like government. And I kind of agree with them. Why would you like government? It doesn't do anything. It's not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be passing laws and regulations, not bad regulations, but reforms, finding a problem and solving it to help people. That's what government is for. We have stopped doing that, and we have the Republican Party to thank for that, because Mitch McConnell doesn't pass bills. And I'm always surprised, because they will even sell you that they have done things that they haven't even done, like lower healthcare medicine. They didn't pass that bill.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you pass that bill? It was a bipartisan bill. As soon as they pass it, some major medications would go down by 70%. But they didn't pass it.
So are they are they anti we the people? Is that what it boils down to? I think we heard this coming into the election as a pretty strong motif by MAGA, that we were not a democracy. I think you probably all heard that over and over and over again. If you watched any live streams that any MAGA folks in them, you heard, because it was part of the talking points, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. And while we do have a Republican form of government, the very foundation, the very first sentence of the words of our forming document, which is the Constitution, begin with the words, we the people. We the people, in order to provide for ourselves, are making these decisions. We the people are unified, and that's why we've been called a union. And I don't think that it's a mistake when we've had several decades, I'm going to say it 3 decades, of the ideal of deregulation and anti-government, just one way or another. Grover Norquist would try to starve it with no funding. Bush and his crew would try to gerrymander districts to hold power. But fundamentally, it was so that the rich could stay richer and the people who needed help could not organize or coordinate to take that power from them. And Obama and his legacy, we saw the cabal that came at him immediately. It was a strong move by McConnell and Paul Ryan and others to say, we're not going to pass one thing you've got, buddy. Good luck. Now they know that Joe Biden knows that, and we've seen all of these hands play out, but it's been around this fib of government is bad. Last thing I'm going to say, I have a lot of liberal friends who are very upset at the choice of Tom Vilsack for the Secretary of Agriculture. And I understand why. Because there is a large push in the left to make it more about hunger and nutrition than it does dealing with farming, because farming is such a, it's sort of gone to a lot of large corporate farms. But you should understand that the largest meat packing plant in this country that produces almost half of the meat supply in this entire country, processes it and pays the farmers to raise it in some form or another, is a Chinese-owned company. A foreign agent owns our food supply. And under the Trump administration, they are allowed to speed up the amount of birds in a chicken processing center from 130 birds a minute to 170 birds a minute. And they get to go ahead and do all their own meat inspections now under this U.S. Department of Agriculture. And that's just one of the small pieces of the USDA. So to bring Tom Vilsack in is to restore any kind of order. And he may not last very long, and they may need other people in that particular department. But our government is meant to cover so many things: data collection, support. This entire nation is a federal nation. And so that's the end of my little sermon. But it's like government isn't our enemy. It's us. Jeff, you work in a lot of organizations, or have been in a lot of organizations. What has happened to this thing of hating the organization we're in? Do you see that in other places where this behavior is happening, or is this just towards the government?
Ironically, a conservative I know hated the Grand Lodge of Kansas, which is our governing body, as a Mason. He was really down on them, really loud about it, in fact, and that was kind of interesting. He also gave a speech at the end of his term about the Republic of Rome and the Republic model. So I have a feeling we were getting some masked MAGA messages. In general, no. I mean, obviously, most of the organizations I've been in, if you don't want to be in it, you just go do something else. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely it has, of course, a lot to do with Trump's demagoguery. I mean, he started this whole thing with "It's all broken, only I can fix it," and he gets on. I mean, here we are, 11th hour, November 10th or whatever. He got on his soapbox and said this election was run. We're a third world country. Well, he's been president for 4 years. We're a third world country. And somehow that motivates his base. I mean, can you imagine if any Democrat had ever gotten on television and accused us of being a third world country, and if for anything? I mean, it's just mind-boggling. That's been his thing all along. We suck, and his followers get excited about it. It's quite mind-boggling. And I think Ace shared, I think it probably has swearing in it, so he's probably not going to play it, but it was a comedian ranting about what is this country not giving you? I mean,
let's watch that.
I don't know how.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Keep on talking. Let me pull that.
It's great. I follow him now on Twitter, and I was already following him on Periscope. He does daily walks that are kind of nice. He walks to these woods by his house for about 8 minutes a day. It's pretty cool. He goes out there he goes out there for 3 hours, but he broadcasts for 8 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He seems like a real good guy.
It's such a wonderful piece of I call it poetry. I mean, it really is. It's well done.
Yeah. I guess I was a segue to Ace's thing. While Ace is bringing it up, I don't know if you guys are aware, but instead of YouTube, we're all supposed to go to, I guess it's supposed to be BitChute. But what's funny is I'm going to start calling it BitChute because it's spelled BitChute.
I haven't heard of it yet.
Yeah, BitChute. Yeah, and so I'm going to start calling it BitChute.
All right, whenever you're ready.
That was a filler joke for free.
I love it. Let's watch this guy.
Yep. All right. I'll go.
Make him big, and then we'll watch
Let me
him.
make him big. Pull this up. There we go.
I hope you're fucking happy and sad, you fucking little piss pants pieces of shit. Oh, we're going to storm the Capitol. Let's storm the Capitol. We're patriots. You're a fucking coward. Patriots. Jesus Christ. Fucking idiots that I played high school football with wearing a goddamn American flag bandana talking about we got to get up there and storm. We got to take our country back. From what? From fucking what? What are you so goddamn upset about? What has anyone ever done to you? You fucking entitled piece of shit. Don't you ever fucking call me one again. Don't you ever say, Corey, you fucking snowflake. You're a liberal. That means that y'all look. What? Want some people to not be sick every now and then? Is this the thing that you can't fucking stand? So you've got to get in your goddamn fucking piece of shit Ford F-150 you got from your dad, drive it to DC and pitch a fucking fit? Is that what it is? Is it health care? Is it still with the fucking guns? Is that what is it? You said Obama was taking them 8 fucking years ago. You said that. Nothing. What is it that this country hasn't fucking given you? You literally got escorted out of the Capitol building, aside from the ones that they had to fucking shoot. Is that what it takes? Did you just want to be a fucking martyr? God, you're so fucking pathetic. Do you not ever just sit there and think, my kids are going to see this. My grandkids are going to see this. They're going to put it in the textbook, and you're going to look like the dumbest motherfucker in the world. Nobody will give a shit about Watergate. Nobody. That is fucking, dude, I'm out of breath from how stupid y'all are. What is it that this country doesn't give you that you think you have to do some bullshit like this? But when you see a fucking black person actually get shot, no gun in their hands, nothing. Oh, they should just comply. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. What is your goddamn problem? Just quit embarrassing me, man. I want my fucking country back. How about that? God damn it. Fuck y'all, you fucking cowards.
Amen, brother.
I mean, that's it, man.
I mean, that's it.
Drop the
That's
mic,
the law and the gospel, because that's the truth right there, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what's up.
Seriously. That was my question, too. What has happened that makes you think that it's time to go storm the Capitol? There's nothing you can point at. Nothing has happened to say this is the time.
Right. And what did they accomplish besides destroying their own brand and destroying Donald Trump? What did they accomplish? Delay to vote?
And that, that anger and clarity of voice, the question really is, how do we move past that? Let's say you have that whole team of football players. That guy, how's he gonna? What do you do? He's just never gonna talk to those guys again.
That's what happened, dude. That's what happened. That's what happened. That's what happened. I mean, I remember going to school with guys like that. We talked about this the other day. These fucking guys in literally in high school or 8th or 9th grade civics class were drawing stupid fucking swastikas on their shit in school, on their Trapper Keeper or whatever, or saying stupid shit that they didn't understand, but it was like, meh, because they shut it off, man. And they didn't continue forward and continue with big thoughts and even try to make it to friggin' 10th grade geometry when it came to living in a culture and being a person. And so I moved out of the red America. I left Trumpistan. It wasn't Trumpistan yet. It was Reaganistan, but I left it. And all the churches, all the Lutheran churches, all the ELCA Lutheran churches that when I went to seminary 20, 30 years ago, I guess it is now. I can't believe that. Whatever it is. It's not 30, it's 20. But like when we did that, like all those churches, as soon as we brought and let gay marriage happen in our church and had gay pastors, there were 36 Lutheran churches in the 3-county area that I grew up in. There are 0 left in the ELCA. They quit. They went to, we got to go where it's fucking, we know we hate gays, and so we can't stay here. And that was literally how it went down. And they just click. And that was in the church. The same thing happened in a lot of our schools and in a lot of our other communities where it's just like, we went low. We chose this low path, this bullshit country song that just was like, well, it's never going to get better. And that's the American way. Fuck that, dude. That's the thing. There's no hope to that. There's no, like, I am so excited to be alive right now for hopefully the next couple decades because of things we could be doing.
Mm-hmm. And this is what's getting me kind of just super frustrated is the reason that the MAGA crowd exists is because they hate government, because government is terrible, but they hate they're on the wrong side, because if you're going to hate government, why are you aligning yourself with the Republican Party? And this is, I had just a frustrating day because one of my good friends, a wife, posted this message. It's just a terrible message, and it's just filled with hatred and a lot of this libtard and things like that. And hold on, let me.
Oops, wrong one.
Let me play this. Go ahead and share that. And this is what I made this. I'm going to expand this. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, do it. I'm going to put it all the way across.
I kind of told her, but I didn't even go into this much. The Republicans control 2/3 of government. It was 3 of 3. On the Supreme Court, currently, 6-3 Republican majority. They make all the laws. U.S. Appeal Court, 7-5 Republican majority. I misspelled that. Third Circuit, which is right below, 96-81 Republican majority. Now, everybody likes to go up and go, well, what about the House? The House is also, they can only make certain things. Once it goes to the Senate, which the Republicans control, nothing gets passed. But what about your states? Your states, your governors. Look at that, 27-23 Republicans. Then the people right below those governors, lieutenant governors, 28-27 Republicans. What about the people that are in your state that make laws and follow up with them by charges? Attorney generals, 26-24. What about the people? Everybody complains about stop the steal. Stop the steal. This election was stolen. Well, elections are run by the state, and the person that runs the election is the Secretary of State. Shocker, 24-21 Republican majority. And this is where I'm super confused why the Democrats get any of the blame when this entire country is run by Republicans. There's another one, and I'll keep on expanding this. I'll do a bigger version. But if you look at courts, conservative, of course, they don't go by Republicans, they go by conservatives. But other than LA, California, and some of the New York, all the courts are all conservatives. Like it's hugely conservative. So this is where I'm super confused. If you look at this, how are these people, if they're going to hate government, why are they even aligning themselves with any government? To just be anarchists at this point. If you're going to align yourself with any government, it should be the Democratic Party, because you can at least go, well, I've been a Republican. They're in charge of my state, of all the laws, everybody around this. And look at the crap that we have to deal with. Poor states.
I think it's one of the strokes of genius of Mitch McConnell, that he would refuse to put a bipartisan bill forward, and it would even be on the news that he's blocking it again. That same night, he would go in front of a podium and do a press conference and say, I'm trying to get this bill passed, but the Democrats are refusing to cooperate. So all of the blame of anybody who wasn't paying attention 4 hours ago or isn't listening to that news stream in the first place and is only listening to Trump and Mitch, never knew that there was a bipartisan bill, never knew the dialogue the Democrats had been putting into trying to get a deal to move forward in the first place. They have no idea that there's all these outraged talking heads saying, why can't we get anything done? And he just goes behind the podium and he's like, well, the Democrats are refusing to cooperate with us once again. We're sorry we can't get this done. I mean, it's just direct misinformation.
It is.
And politicians often play those games of half-truths and lies in terms of process. But it does seem like we've gone a little further. To see Roy Blunt today come on CBS News or CBS Face of the Nation, and when asked about should there be an impeachment, he goes, seems to me President Trump, this is my words, but it was something like this, seems to me President Trump has touched the stove and I believe he won't touch it again. In other words, he realized he shouldn't have done it, and he knows that we'll all turn on him. There is this I was so mad on Wednesday watching it. I didn't have the heartbreak until later on Wednesday night when they were actually back in action, and I realized how close this was, and we started to see just how fucking close this thing was, and what they really were trying to do. And we have to stop talking about it as anything other than they wanted to kill our government.
Kill our government. It was actual domestic terrorism. We got lucky because one guy literally didn't turn right or left and followed the police officer. There's a picture.
That's awesome.
Basically, they were following this police officer, and he kept on running, kind of moving them back, and he moved them right, and there was an open hallway to the left. If they had gone to the left, they would have made it inside, and then who knows what would have happened. Yeah. They could have gotten Nancy Pelosi. They could have gotten the VP. We don't know what would have happened. There were also pipe bombs that apparently didn't just go off. They were deactivated. There was also a huge truck bomb, an actual truck bomb that was outside waiting to explode. You're absolutely right, Marty. From now on, whenever you see MAGA people, we have to not call them MAGA people. We have to tell them, not tell them that they are terrorists, but tell them you do understand that MAGA is a terrorist organization now. You are supporting a terrorist organization.
My neighbor, who's had his Trump flag up for way over a year, it was gone on Thursday.
Good.
Because something happened.
It's not stupid to go, I'm on the wrong side of history. I've been telling people that, and this came a lot quicker than I thought. I thought it was going to come out when they start opening up all these things. I told people, you do not want to be on this side of history. This is not any different than what happened in Germany. These people are going to come out. There's going to be stories that you are going to be ashamed of. And then there's going to be a whole bunch of posts of you going, yeah, Trump and MAGA, and then in the hat and things like that. And then people are going to go, oh, really? And now the private sector is hitting big, and they should, because they've been taking in all this money. Because one thing that MAGA does is it does fandom. It goes extremist. They buy everything and they spend their money on it as long as you support them. And the private industry goes, give me. But now they're going, yeah, we screwed this thing up. We got to pull way back because this is a terrorist organization. And once it becomes fully known that there was a huge terrorist organization and you started posting things, now your boss, when you go into apply for a job and he looks you up and you've got that MAGA hat, he goes, I don't want any of that. I don't know what you've been up to. I don't know what kind of things you've been planning. This is why this is your time as a MAGA person. Throw it away. Hide. Imagine it as it's a swastika at this point.
Repent.
You got to get rid of it.
Repent. It's time to repent. It's time to go, I fucked up. I'm burning my shit. And
I don't even need you to apologize to me right now.
No, that's right.
I would get rid of all of it, never talk about it again. And then those that have done harm, well, we're going to have to come after you. But if you were just a fan and like you posted some stuff and you were all in on it, just hide. Get rid of all of it, never talk about it again, and pretend that it never happened. That's what needs to happen.
But instead, let's keep this going. But instead, there are current threats for Washington on the 17th and the 19th that are heavy. And where I'm going to bring it up, we don't know if they're being taken seriously by which organization, because we don't know what's happening in our government right now. Mm-hmm. And that's a major problem, which is why I believe that tomorrow morning when they introduce the impeachment articles, I personally think that that's one of the reasons that they're doing it, because they realize that the executive branch has gone limp. They got limp.
Or they've been hollowed out and replaced with people that are actually part of the coup.
Amen.
There is a very good part that you might get. We might find out that there were a lot more. How's a truck just I don't like to spray. I don't want it to be conspiracy theory, but I do have questions how a truck could be standing there and no one found it. It was there for 8 hours. How did no one go, well, this is a little weird? How was the National Guard not already there? Someone made that call, and that person needs to be investigated. I posted that the guy in charge of the Capitol Police, you will be shocked, was appointed in 2017.
Right. He
was not there forever, and I'm not saying he did anything wrong, but he resigned. He needs to be investigated. We need to make sure that, did someone go, hey, just call, nothing's going to happen. Just pretend that nothing happens. Don't call in the National Guard, because this just seems like too much of a screw up.
Well, and to be honest, we don't, I mean, what do we know? We don't know that we're not going to see an armada of Russian ships show up on outside Atlantic City the way things are going right now. Like, we don't have a transparent system, and we're sitting with a guy in the White House chair who is committing to his own agenda, and he is flouting it, and he's been cut off. And this is what happens every time you cut a sociopathic narcissist off. If you decide to cut their oxygen off, you have to be ready for the explosion. Yeah. And they did. Twitter did. Facebook did. And guys,
I've never seen that. I mean,
this week is going to be a big one.
Well, first of all, we know that there was some level of inside knowledge, because you can just have the same question everybody raised as soon as it happened. Why was there such a huge difference in security between the Black Lives Matter demonstration and this protest where they attacked the Capitol? So, for one, we know that somebody said, we don't want the extra help that you guys are offering. We don't want the extra National Guard. We don't want the other. They said no. So that whoever made that decision, I think they knew what was going to happen, and they understaffed the situation with the full knowledge that it was going to be potentially volatile. Does that mean that they expected it to go that way? Whatever. I just think that needs to be investigated. Here's the other thing. Thank God that, a lot of these guys are not the sharpest tools in the shed, because of all the times in history when you could have approached the Capitol to storm the Capitol wearing a mask and not get shot or arrested on your way to the Capitol, this was your one chance to storm the Capitol wearing a full mask, and you would be doing what people are expecting you to do, not looking like a modern day terrorist, and they didn't do it. I mean, now they're posting pictures of themselves and their friends, and that's what the FBI is using to identify all these people. They're just like going through everybody's profile, and all these guys are like, "Yay, we're the Capitol! Oh, we made it! Yay!" No mask.
And there's two types of those. What you said, there's a lady even that said, if you hire me as your realtor, I'll sell your house just, with the same energy that I'm storming the Capitol. She's like in the doorways doing a selfie. And then the second side, what's really ironic, is there's the guy with the cuffs that's jumping over the railing wearing like someone called it police gear. I would definitely call it paramilitary gear.
Totally.
They identified him, and part of the video they have of him is someone's live streaming, and he seems to be with his mom, ironically enough. I mean, this woman's definitely 20 years older than him. And he's literally saying, "Are you streaming that just," she says, "Are you streaming that just for yourself?" And he goes, "Yeah," which of course makes no sense. That's not what streaming is. And he goes, "Okay," because like earlier some Antifas were coming through trying to film us to dox us. So, it's just crazy. And it's that guy. He's wearing the same shirt still, the same vest. He's got, anyway, they're figuring out who all these people are. Like that guy, he was fully covered. He had a Rifle Coffee Company hat on. He had a Punisher American flag patch on and a Blue Line Tennessee patch. So those are three patches. By the time you get to three patches, there's not going to be 500 people on the Capitol wearing those same three patches,
Right.
Yeah.
And they've got a picture of him in his house, in the boots, with his hat on the coffee table. I mean, they've got all the evidence. I mean, the guy's been arrested. It's amazing. Although I still think the guy who got turned in by his ex-wife is the funniest story of the whole damn thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
So
they were chanting USA as they broke through the door. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Like, how do you not realize you're breaking into the USA Capitol, chanting USA? And again, they accomplished nothing. All they did was break in. I mean, besides insurrection,
they killed five people.
treason, and 5 people got killed. The point is, though, there was no objective obtained. My point of they accomplished nothing. It's all negatives. They didn't. I mean, what was their objective besides?
Well, their objective,
Jeff, their objective was to get there and to flex. That was the full.
That was it.
That's a strongman objective, is to go there and stand there and mark your territory and
they claimed kill Mike Pence. That's the one thing they were chanting is, "We want Mike Pence. We're going to kill him."
Again, I think that there's a mob of people, and then within that mob, there's an actual terrorist organization that was preparing. Just like the Governor Whitmer people, right? They didn't succeed in that either, but they were training, they were preparing.
Right.
The question is, because these people were in there, who was their leader? And who are they talking to? I mean, are they talking to a person that talks to another person that talks to Rudy Giuliani? When does it finally go up to going, hey, we know what's up. We're going to get a mob of people, and within, we're going to get people that are more professionals. They're going to go and do the job. And that's what I really think there is. We're going to find out that there is some kind of a leader that has some kind of a link somewhere with the Trump organization.
And I'm ready for that, but here's also where I'm at. And I want to say this because I forgot to say it on Thursday night. The very fact that while all of those people were rabidly trying to, in some fashion or another, overthrow our government on the Capitol steps, anyone who breached the line, anybody, I don't care if it was grandma who walked with you while you ran up to the Capitol and she happened to come and sit on the post, but she came past where that line was, and they all did, and they were there for way over an hour and a half. The fact that there was not, while they were there, a perimeter put around them to just sit there and go, okay, every single one of these people is going to get an interview from the FBI before they get to go home. The approach was so haphazard. First of all, we were getting attacked from the inside. So you got the War of 1812 happening inside, where cops died and other people died, and bad things happened to our property. which these people want to be property rights owners, and they want to tell me how sad it is for an overly insured used car lot in friggin' Kenosha that burned. Who gives a shit, man? This is holy ground, and they put the Confederate flag over our holiest spot. And so to do that, they're all complicit of an overthrow. We can't, why is that not? Every last one of them needs to be rolled up for at least that.
Yeah, if the four of us were there, my wife and I were talking about this last night. If the four of us were Trump supporters and we were there, and good people, but just root for Trump, you'd stop at the barricade. Yes. You'd be like, wow, I'm not going to go in there. Like, they've told us not to go in there. I'm not going in there. I mean, I'm here for Trump. I'm here for being a Republican. The fact that people just not only charged through the barricade and charged all the way up to the building that clearly was off limits. I'm sure there were announcements too. I'm sure the police were saying you're not allowed here, right, before all this happened.
Yeah.
To go through the barricades, go even up the steps is pretty aggressive. And then to just flow in through the doors and then think you're just going to flow back out and go home and have a beer and tell you stories about raiding the Capitol. I mean, it just shows how cultish they are, that they thought that they could do that. And by the way, while we're there, people try and downplay it. We definitely should not. It was an extremely serious event. As you guys have said, 5 people died. Maybe it's up to 6 now. One cop they think maybe committed suicide is what my wife was saying. Anyway, all that, even if you try and give Trump a pass, even if Trumpers want to give him a pass on a speech, he could have stopped it like this. His message was, "You're special. I love you. Go home
I
and
love
eat."
you.
Not stop now. Everyone at the Capitol, stop now. You know, surrender yourself to the police right now. If you're outside the building, go home. You know, we're going to give you clemency. Just stop and go home. But those of you in the or whatever, just a message of stop, go home.
But Jeff,
he could have stopped it in an instant. And like someone else was saying, I believe it was actually O.J. Simpson, ironically, if you've seen his tweet about it, you know, Martin Luther King was at the front of his marches, you know, Lewis was at the front of his marches, you know, where was the president? And by the way, if he had been at the front of the march, maybe, just maybe, he would have said, okay, now we stop here. You know, we've made our point, stop here.
Kel, did he say, "I know how you feel"? I can't remember that. Did he say that?
He did, and he also said he was going to march with them.
That's what I keep saying.
Yep.
They keep editing it out of the clip, but he says he looks to the right and then he looks back and he says, "Yeah, and I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to march with you."
Yeah,
he does.
And another thing that was happening while the attack was happening, Trump. It's been reported by multiple people that inside Trump was super happy and he was getting upset why his people inside of the White House were not happy and excited.
He was calling to confirm too, to continue to shore up that they were going to.
He was calling the wrong people. Mike Pence was trying to deal to make sure the National Guard comes in, and he pulled off. He said no to the National Guard, and I think the no to the National Guard, I think, is what's really going to end him forever. And I'd like to, if we have time, to get into this.
Yes, sir.
What do we do next? Because right now the options are Nancy Pelosi has given Mike Pence 24 hours to use the 25th Amendment, or Trump has to resign. Obviously, Mike Pence is not going to use the 25th Amendment. Trump would just resign. So is that going to be one thing? Then Nancy's going, if she doesn't get this, she's going to vote on impeachment. From my understanding, they're at like 205, 210. They will have more than enough votes.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. The question is, of course, we have to impeach him. That's not, I was against it, not against it. Politically, I didn't think it was a good idea. But now, the fuck with that. You got to impeach him because Nancy Pelosi, the report is she talked with Milley, the general. He's the guy. He was definitely in the room, which means if she talked to him, she probably asked him, what did Trump say when they asked for, for them to bring in the National Guard? Did he agree? He told her the truth. She already knows that's the truth. So once you have General Milley, they're going to call him on stand. He's going to say it, and Trump is done forever. The problem is there's not going to be a trial until Trump leaves. And a lot of people are going to be kind of upset about that. I'm okay with it because you impeach him now, just like any other thing. The trial doesn't have to be next week. We can delay the trial. There's trials delayed for two years. And what the plan is, although I know people are not going to be happy, is Joe Biden's going to come in. He's going to work for 100 days, and then they're going to do the trial afterwards. This is a genius plan.
It is.
Really is. I know the Republicans are going to get on their high horse and be like, oh, we already moved on. No. We did not. Now it's the trial. Now we fix COVID. Now we're going to march all, and we're going to we're in control, by the way. So this whole thing where we have the trial without evidence, that ain't happening this time around. We're going to put Kevin McCarthy on the stand. We're going to put Milley on the stand under oath. We're going to ask them direct questions, and we're going to see them answer those questions with no. The president of the United States said no to the National Guard while the vice president of the United States was in danger and asking for it. And once Milley says this under oath, it's over. It's over. Like the whole Trump, it's already over, but the whole MAGA thing is done. Because
the other thing I would add, and I just want to throw this out there because you're right. That's the trial will do Milley, but it will also be an investigation with witnesses, and it will go where it goes. And instead of being the Mueller trial or the Mueller investigation where they had to keep peeling things off the onion, they're going to start in the center of the onion and go out, and everybody that's involved will be found out. I do want to say this, and this is to anyone who has any sway politically with the Biden administration. This is something I'd like to be picked up on Twitter. If anybody would like to tweet it, I would really appreciate it because I think it's important. I believe that Joe Biden, if it hasn't been thought of yet, needs to do an emergency order on the first minute to have an emergency detail of Secret Service for every member of Congress for at least 6 months.
Probably a good idea.
And I mean person to person to person to person to person. So that when they're all in Congress, there happens to be 350 agents just hanging out. Because what we're going to have to make sure is if we wait 100 days, that we have a Senate in 100 days. Because this crazy bunch is going to attack. MAGA is on the loose, folks. And I am, until I hear a repentance, back to the prior part of the early part of this show, until I hear repentance and a plea on their knees that they're so sorry that they did this. It's not that I won't forgive them. That isn't the issue. I can't trust them.
Right.
You and I cannot trust MAGA until MAGA ends. And to see Roy Blunt go on the news today and say, well, we just don't know, means that there's all kinds of belief that they're going to weather this storm.
Right.
Well, that's
the other thing. Let me just say that's the other thing that an impeachment trial would do is it gives us a roll call of where the Republicans stand.
Yep.
Are you going to continue to support Trump? Are you going to spew that bullshit now? And that's the only good thing that's coming from them storming the Capitol is if that didn't happen, then there would have been no accountability. We would have just been like, God, that sucked. Ugh, let's move on. Let's make the most of it. But now there will be accountability because it got so egregious. There's no hiding it, and we have to deal with it. We absolutely have to deal with it in order to move forward.
Tim, your mic is a bit hot, so I'm going to let Ace talk.
Sorry, bro.
And you have to kind of you have to understand the Republican side, just like the last time. They know already what he did. They already know some of the details that they don't want us to find out. So, of course, they're going to start saying, oh, let's move on and do that. They know what's going to happen. The question is, what happens if I still say he's going to resign and he's going to get a pardon. The question is, if he does that, how much does that hamper that investigation? Because think about it. If he really did do this, think about all the people he's putting in extreme danger, including Mike Pence. Mike Pence is now really in some deep stuff where you go, wait a minute, you knew he did this and you still didn't do the 25th Amendment? McCarthy, you were in the room and you still didn't, like all these people that knew that he did this. This is treason of treason, essentially. Like, there's nothing more treasonous than this. They're gonna find this out. They don't want this out. This is why I think he is going to resign, because the Republicans need this swept under the rug. And if he doesn't resign and get pardoned, it doesn't get swept under the rug. So I think he's going to resign tomorrow as soon as Nancy says we got the votes, and that's it.
Do you think, Jeff? Do you think this is? I mean, you live in ruby red Kansas, and you know how well they are able to sweep things under the rug, and history goes on, and things just. I mean, conservatives have been able to do this sort of glad hand, move past time. From Bush and his craziness into the next thing, and it's just, well, you know, what brighter tomorrows. You know, sort of the NFL response, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to happen here?
I think it's different place to place. I mean, I think when you know, Kansas is the birthplace of a lot of astronauts. Eisenhower Library is in Abilene. We have Fort Riley, the home of the Big Red. Well, the U.S. home of the Big Red One. There's actually more in Germany than there are here, but. You know, there's a lot of people that I think patriotism is serious and real, much more than Donald Trump. So I think okay. at least in Kansas, I think it's likely that they'll become, bastard stepchildren. They'll likely be. I don't think MAGA has a lot of air here. I don't think they're gonna. Okay. I don't think a lot of our politicians went out of their way to support Trump. I don't think Trump had a huge bite out of this state. I mean, I had been at events and seen "Make America Great Again" hats, but that's a lot different than what we're talking about. You know, I mean, there's taking off your MAGA hat, and there's trying to get a tattoo removed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think at least in Kansas, I think, and maybe it's because I kind of think there's actually a counter situation. I think because Republicans in the majority here, I think the MAGAs weren't so butthurt. I think the MAGAs are actually more dangerous in blue states.
Because they're losing the thing, and by the way,
they're more militarized. They're more set. They feel more oppressed in blue states. Where here they didn't have to get all aggressive because they are we got all 5 votes, no problem. They got.
Can you do that Birdman?
Yes.
Yeah, last one for a second. No, the Birdman, not
Birdman comment.
I'll show you this later.
Oh, sorry,
the Birdman comment. Last one. There you go.
You can't sweep a Toyota truck under the rug, Ace.
I mean, that is true. What I mean by see,
I was always on it.
What I mean by sweep under the rug is if he gets impeached, there's going to be a trial. If there's going to be a trial, people are going to get put on stand. Also, since the Republicans will lead, they'll have majority. They can also expand it as well. If he resigns and gets pardoned, then this portion will be mildly closed. There'll be other investigations, but they wouldn't have to do with Trump. So the Republicans they could still find this out, but at least they get some cover for X amount of time where you can't go after Trump, so you can't put McCarthy under oath because it's a lot harder. And also it's not going to get as many views. An impeachment trial gets views. A random house Benghazi. I mean, who watched the Benghazi stuff? No one. That kind of stuff doesn't get views, and it's going to get a little bit more under the rug. And I know that we all know he's not going to resign. I don't think he's going to have a choice. They're going to try to force him to resign because they know what's up. It would be, by the way, Republicans, if you don't force him to resign, you're literally burning down your own party. You have to force him to resign because it puts this little umbrella over this period that you don't want come out, because a lot of you were way part of it. And imagine what happens with Ted Cruz and Howley and all those people. Milley goes on the stand, says, oh yeah, the president of the United States did not want to call the National Guard. I mean, shocking. Right? Everybody's going to be shocked. Everybody's going to believe it. Then what is Ted Cruz going to say? So you destroyed Ted Cruz. You destroyed Howley. You destroy all these people that basically supported someone that committed treason. And they knew about it. So I really honestly will be shocked if he doesn't resign. Not because he wants to, because he gets forced. And he can get forced, by the way. It's very easy. Mike Pence goes to him with Mitch McConnell and goes, either you resign and we pardon you, or I use the 25th Amendment and we remove you and you get no pardons. That's it. Done. Also, a pardon from Mike Pence is the pardon of all pardons.
And once you're impeached, the pardon doesn't count anymore either. The minute that it's like, okay, I mean, at that point, it's very challengeable because you did it under duress, and it's not,
So that's another. So tomorrow, I'm assuming we'll see some pardons like crazy. But Trump also knows that pardoning himself is a terrible, terrible idea. His lawyers have told them, even if you pardon, once you pardon yourself, you're setting yourself up into a trap. I've listened to many lawyers and scholars talk about this. The minute he pardons himself is the minute he guarantees the Justice Department attacking him, because they cannot allow a president pardoning himself. So in order for them to take it to a Supreme Court, they have to go after him on a crime. So they'll have to go after it. They can't leave it even if they want to. So he can't pardon himself. It's a trap. And he knows for a fact the best pardon is Mike Pence. And Mike Pence, now the problem is he tried to potentially get Mike Pence killed. I don't know if Mike Pence even wants to pardon him. The other thing is, on that is Mike Pence will pardon him, because also don't forget, Mike Pence doesn't want to be part of an administration with a president that was impeached twice. And Mike Pence does not want to be on an administration when they put people on stand saying, oh, yeah, you knew that the president didn't want to call the National Guard and you didn't use the 25th Amendment. This is a terrible look for Mike Pence. Mike Pence will pardon him like he should for the party. I don't want him to, but he will. And then the Republicans can go, we can now move on. Officially, this whole thing, let's sweep it under the rug and move on. And then the Democrats will Benghazi the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Can you guys imagine a pardoned Trump? Can you imagine the things he would say?
Yeah.
That better be an airtight pardon, because like I've said before, I think the Nixon pardon carried because it was like, okay, we got to put a bag around it. We got to set it aside. We got to go on with the future. But
Nixon left too. He didn't.
I think they accepted this sort of broad pardon. But what's Pence going to do? I pardon Trump for all crimes he's ever committed. I mean, like, how, you know what I mean? Like, how do you?
You can't pardon state crimes. You can only pardon federal crimes. So he's still on the hook for everything in New York, everything with his charity, everything with his taxes, everything with misrepresenting the value of his properties.
Right now, we're talking about the riot at the Capitol, right? He wants protection from that. But I mean, you can just start going back through a calendar. I mean, it's not like this is the first time he's done something jaw-dropping.
Right.
Totally. I mean, that's been his whole presidency. Yeah. You know, that's been one thing that's been discussed, is he's just built up people's tolerance over time to where initially we were shocked, but you get so tired of being shocked that you're just waiting to see if it's going to get worse.
I've said before, if we sat down with a Trump supporter and said, what kind of things would cause you to lose faith in Donald Trump? We would never have even gotten close to the things he's actually done. You know what I mean? We would have been talking about, you know, it's revealed he was unfaithful. I guess technically that was partially revealed before he was elected, but you know, tax evasion, yada yada yada. They would be like, "Oh no, I would not. You know, I would never support him if it was found he did those 5 things or whatever." And then he's done 50 more. It's just exhausting.
Well, I want to go back to something that we touched on before, if that's okay, Marty.
Yeah, we're about to wrap it up real quick.
Yeah, just real quick. That's why I want to get it in. The Governor Whitmer thing.
Yeah.
In terms of the organization behind this attack and the potential organization, one thing that, I think went beneath the radar with Governor Whitmer is, people were upset about those protesters who showed up with AR-15s and were standing around, protesting the shutdown. You guys remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
for sure.
To me, it seemed like, and even at the time, like they were testing the limits of the security, which turned out to actually probably be accurate, because those same guys were the ones that were turning around.
It was a test run.
Kidnapping.
It was a test run.
It could have been.
So check it out. If you look at the video of the assault on the Capitol, there's a bunch of guys who aren't really getting into the mix, but they're in tactical gear and they're just videotaping strategic spots. They're videotaping security response. They're videotaping how much, how easy this access is versus that other access. I mean, there are guys, you see them posted up on the arches when they're doing like the smoke bombs and stuff. You see guys that are standing there the whole time. They're just recording from the top of the arch down into the tunnel as to what's going on. If it's anything like Governor Whitmer, I mean, it's the test run. Whoever's organized, they're just testing the defenses to see what they need to do if they're really going to come back harder next time.
Yeah. They're organized, man.
Don't forget to do predictions, because that was
that's where we're headed is predictions.
Predictions.
Sorry.
Before we get to predictions, everybody on here, I really do appreciate it. Please share this. We have a new Twitter feed. It's on right over here, heels_America. Please follow. Please retweet. I'm going to be, and the team will be posting a whole bunch of media, and I'm going to try to have a lot of fun with it, so we can have little clips and predictions. I'll chop them up. And by the way, Jeff has already hit on his. Let me actually, if we can play that, because Jeff last week already hit on his. So let me pull that up. Good job, Jeff. Very quickly, by the way, he hit.
No problem. No problem. Here we go.
Let me know when you're ready.
We're up.
Here we go.
I've got a prediction. Within the 24 hours of Trump's statement, he will make some asinine statement that reverses his statement. Because if you remember Charlottesville, he had a public statement. I denounce violence. I denounce racism. He actually did. You may not remember it because he immediately came down the elevators and said, great people, really good people on both sides. You also probably don't recall the next day. He got back out in front of cameras. I denounce violence and racism in all its forms. So he's done this over and over and over and over and over again, and I know he will do it in the next 24 hours, unless his Twitter's still blocked and he doesn't have anybody to talk to. He will come out and say, this election was stolen from me. I'll never concede. It's unfair. Because if you watch the speech, he actually never concedes. He just says, I know there'll be a transition of power that I will participate in peacefully. He never said, I give up my claims to the election, Biden won. He specifically does not say that. So that's my bold prediction is Trump will reverse what he said tonight, which was, by the way, almost perfect, because someone obviously said, you're about to get killed by everyone in the freaking country if you don't get this straight. But he'll reverse it. He's not smart enough to keep it straight.
A few moments later.
Yeah. This one's special. I don't even know how you I'm not really even sure how you get blocked from Pinterest.
How
do you get blocked from Pinterest? That's
it was the merchandise stuff.
Look at Jeff.
Well done, sir.
My resignation, by the way, but
there was interference, by the way. I called interference in our chat group because he got his Twitter completely destroyed, so he didn't have a chance to tweet the actual reversal. Although he did tweet
he already said that he regrets releasing that. You can't see it, but the first ones that I posted, there's already Washington, New York Times has said that he has already said that he regrets posting that.
But he did tweet also right after he got unbanned from the extended ban or whatever. What got him banned again was, I'm not going to the inauguration and Trumper stay strong. So I kind of got it both ways, which is even better.
No,
that's very Trumpian to get it both,
I went left and right.
All right, so let's do predictions, and they can be about anything. And Jeff, because you are without a current prediction that's on the floor, do you have anything you're willing to drop as a prediction right now?
I predict Trump will never resign. No deal, no stack of things, no way. Even faced with, you're going to get impeached, you're going to get jail time, you're going to all these things. He'll never resign.
All right, Ace, you're up.
So,
you ready? Are you going to directly oppose me? You're going to go?
No. I already did a projection for resignation. That one stands.
I guess we're opposed then.
I predict that, and this is kind of like a hedge. If he doesn't if he gets an impeachment, if Nancy Pelosi starts doing the impeachment, he is going to go pardon crazy. And I actually predict he's going to pardon a whole bunch of people tomorrow, one of them being his children. He's going to pardon Edward Snowden, which is my big prediction, to set off a huge fuse, a bomb, control the media, and then he's going to pardon his kids. And I don't think he will pardon himself. I think he'll pardon his kids.
Wow, that's sitting there, and we will come back to it. Tim, welcome to the prediction section. Do you have any hot predictions, man? If not, it's all good.
I predict he will not resign. And I predict that somehow he will hold on until, he's supposed to leave. He'll fight being impeached. He'll fight being resigned. He'll fight the 25th getting kicked in. And somehow he'll just try to, hold on and go out the door at the very end.
There you go. High five.
High five. Hata. Oh yeah, that guy.
A Brady Bunch high five. Okay, so my prediction is, and this is a long-term prediction, but one of the genius elements of this 100-day strategy with the impeachment trial is that first of all they're going to impeach him and then set the trial date for later, and in the meantime, what's going to happen is a welding of MAGA to the Republican Party even tighter than it is now because of the yelling and screaming that will happen for the entire 100 days. In other words, the postmortem that the Republicans want to have, because they would be done with Trump in 10 days, will get put off for another 110 days, which really sucks for them because going into March of next year, you're into the summer, and guess what's happening next summer? We're 6 months away from Congress people naming that they're running for Congress in 22. And so they're not going to get their postmortem. They're going to be married to Trump through the trial, and with collateral damage happening around Easter when people head into summer vacation and they forget about it. And they're going to be married to Trump longer than they ever would have had to have been had they stepped up. So that's my prediction.
I mean, that's a good prediction.
Yeah,
Anyway. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you've done, Ace, on these videos. Dude, it's so refreshing to have something that keeps us moving like this. And Jeff, thank you for being here, dude, and bringing your perspective. And your scope last night was awesome. I had to fade out later on into the night. Tim, welcome to the show again. Thank you for being with us again. Thank you for wearing the collar and then taking it off so that you could be sort of post Pastor Tim time. Thanks to everybody who was with us tonight. Please, again, it's at Heels_America. It's our American Heels program. We've got our Twitter page. Next time, we're going to try to be on our new YouTube channel. So right now, it's still on the Marty Blue 001 at Gmail YouTube channel. But next, we got a America Heels YouTube channel, and we're going to be on Twitch. We're trying to make the move because in just about 2.5 months, Periscope won't be happening anymore. And so we're trying to move into Twitter. So please help us with that. If you can, please send this out. We're leaving these up so that folks can look at them whenever. And what's great is we're getting many, many views after we're done. So they are living out there and people are referring them around. So thanks for being with us. Guys, thanks again for being with, and rock on.
Brother.
Great week. We'll be back on Thursday night, 10 Eastern.
Woo!
Woo.
All right.
Thursday.
Bye now.